Hello and welcome everybody to episode 2 of Sit Down with Shibby. I am joined by Mr. Nathanael Birhane, aka the Rizzler, aka the Ethiopian E-boy, but most well known as Mr. BeatDownBlvd. Man, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. What an intro, man. I was not expecting that. But I mean, I guess at this point, people, I know people look at my Twitter profile, so I'm gonna get Ethiopian E-boy a lot, I guess. But you know, it's good. It's funny.
It's on there. I was like, all right, what can I do to extend the intro out? What do people know him as? He's got a bunch of names, bunch of cameos. I want to know, what his persona is. And obviously, you added the Rizzler to your list not too long ago. So I was just like, all right, let's see if we can stretch this out. But this is the question I ask everybody. For people that don't know who you are, man, for people that have been living under a rock, that don't watch League of Legends or anything like that, who are you? Who is BeatDownBlvd?
So I'm a League of Legends broadcaster. Self-explanatory. I work on the LCS Challengers League, which is like tier 2 League of Legends. Basically, these are players who ideally will go up to LCS, this year, next year, whatever year, and that's the league I cover. Yeah.
Perfect. And since you're a caster, obviously, if people are doing like a cursory search of BeatDownBlvd, you got your Leaguepedia, you've got the tournament history, right? Your first tournament technically says it's 2021 UPL Summer. But for a lot of people that don't know, that's just your first like big premier tournament. Can you talk about more of the grind that led up to that point, like to get up to that Leaguepedia, right? Because I don't think a lot of people understand, the $5 series cast, the $10, and I think there's a lot of the exposure cast. Can you talk,
of course,
talk about leading up to that point? Like, what was the grind before that? How long you were casting before that? Because most people would just assume, oh, this guy's been casting for 2 years. I looked him up on Leaguepedia, but there's a lot more work that's put into that, right?
Yeah. Let's see. That was 2021 summer. At that point, I think I'd been casting for 3 years already, and that was like other games because I started casting League in 2020. I want to say mid to late 2020 is when I first started casting League. I actually got to do how Scouting Grounds had a bunch of like small tournaments where you collected points. I'm not gonna lie, I was super new to League even at the time, so I had trouble keeping up. But all I know is like, hey, you want to cast this game for Radiance or this random team or that random team? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And that's kind of where League started. But casting started in like 2018, man. I was casting Overwatch. Pretty much when the esports started. So when Contenders, Open Division, and all that stuff started, the Overwatch League, obviously. And the goal at the time was to be an Overwatch League caster. But things changed.
Yeah, I did a little bit of prowling, snooping. Was on your Instagram. I saw that you went to the arena. I saw that you did all that. And so now, why was there that shift, right? Because I think a lot of people, they'll start out as like one game, some will branch to multi-game, but you kind of did the opposite. You went multi-game, then you were just like, I'm going to do League now. I'm just going to do League. What made that switch? Was it because of the direction that kind of Overwatch went into? Obviously, GOAT's meta came out, and it just became like a more of a boring game. Was League something that you gravitated towards after? Did you play League at all before you started casting?
Okay, so in order, technically, the way I did it was one game, multiple game focus, and then one game again with League. Because Overwatch was my only game for like the first 2 years, I think, when I was broadcasting. And it's funny you looked at my Instagram because that video is from the day I went there in like one of the first matches of the Overwatch League period. And that was actually why I wanted to start broadcasting because I thought that whole thing was like really cool. And as for why I left, I'm gonna say this was clearly a hot take because not a lot of people agreed, but I loved GOAT's meta. It was actually my favorite meta Overwatch ever had. I liked it better than Dive. I liked it better than any 2-2-2, whatever composition you saw. Ryan Zarya, even though I love Ryan Zarya. Good times. No, I loved GOATs because it was the meta for so long that it got to a point where you could tell what teams were good at it, and it was so fun watching them. It was so fun watching the good teams. Yeah, dude, I'll never forget. It was like the first stage finals in the second year. It was the Shock versus the Titans. And that was the craziest 5-game series I've ever seen in like any esports, like to this day. I remember watching that like actually at a bar in Toronto. It was a good time. I'm sorry, that was not your question though.
That's
Why
fine.
did I
No,
leave Overwatch?
we could pivot to goats. I like goats too. Hot take. I'm a tank main.
That's my guy, Shibby. That's what I like to hear. You know how many people?
Ryan, Zarya, Diva,
Yes,
like Brig,
sir.
Lucio, and then you got
Yes,
the Winston
sir.
goats. Then you'd run all this
Yeah.
other stuff. Yeah,
That's what I liked about it. The variance.
I was deep into Overwatch too, man. I was deep into Overwatch,
man,
so
good man.
I get it. I get it. Yeah. So I guess a little bit pivot. Commentating goats, right? A lot of people complained about like commentating it. A lot of people complain about like the visual clarity of Overwatch. I think that's still an issue now that they've even reduced a player, right? You don't have a tank as much. How was it actually casting that? Like it's a completely different game, right? I cast Overwatch here and there, right? For like collegiate and it's a completely different pace as a color caster, right? It's a lot different.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing to get used to. It actually made getting used to League a little hard because all the games I casted before then had little to no downtime, whether it was, Valorant, Overwatch, Call of Duty, and then I come to League where I just have like legitimate time to like be chill and talk about stuff. It's like, whoa, what do I do with all this time? Like, this is crazy. I'm usually supposed to be throwing it by now or something like that. But casting goats was hard because of how complicated like the comp actually was. It was a lot of micro and minutia. But I mean, I got over that by talking to coaches and asking them about it because I thought the comp was really cool. I like the variations, what worked on what map, and learning about that. So I don't know. If you complained about casting it, skill issue is my response. I'm going to be honest.
Skill gap.
As for the visual clarity of the game, yeah, that was a big issue even before that. And then it just like kept getting worse with the heroes that they added. I think Moira is where it really got bad because that ultimate was just, oh my God, like so big, bright, colorful on top of everything else going on. Like it's just so hard to watch this game.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's always kind of been an issue with Overwatch because you didn't know, like, sometimes you didn't know what the Ryan was doing. Like if he was blocking off Zen healing during the gravity, right? Like during the
or like the cool stuff where like if someone Winston bubbles like a Lucio when he ults, nobody gets the shield. If you Winston bubble the Zen like you're talking about, you block the healing. Same thing.
Yeah, line of sight stuff is like really hard to.
Yeah,
line of sight is hard to point out when the actual line of sight is so cluttered, right? Like it can be really rough. But enough about Overwatch. I love reminiscing too. I miss those days.
I miss it.
But yeah, talk about that grind, like the $5, $10 cat. Like what was that? Those 3 years, it was rough, right? Like it had, like I was for me.
Yeah, no, I think everyone who's gone through it knows it's a tough one. You got to work, assuming you're not like, because some of these kids are in like high school, they don't work yet, which is fine. But for us who are like a little older, getting into casting, of course, we have to, live, eat, which means by extension we have to work. So it's that whole grind of working full time, casting on your nights, your weekends, and it was tough. Even after leaving Overwatch, of course, it's like the same thing. Where you're doing the free casts for this or that, these small tournaments that nobody knows. I mean, I'm thankful for them at the end of the day because it's like how I got here. But it was oh Lord, yeah, it was a grind because it's like about a lot of reaching out to people, cold DMs, this and that. Being good about like kind of archiving your material, taking clip stuff, so you have like a body of work to show, and then that's where the whole caster reel gets involved and stuff like that. And that's just kind of how it goes. You do the free shit so that you can get footage to work on the slightly tiny bit paid shit, and then you get footage from that to do the more paid shit, and then it's the cycle that hopefully keeps going.
Yeah, it's like the resume.
Yeah, literally.
Calling back a little bit, we are a bit older. I know you recently had your birthday. You turned, I believe, 30, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 27, so we're not too far apart. We would have gone to the same high school if we grew up in the same town.
Yeah, exactly.
So
where do you live?
I'm in California. I'm in
Orange.
Cool. Yeah, I know you're up north, like way up north.
Oh yeah, way north, also east.
Yeah. What is it like, kind of being older coming into the esports scene? Because like for us, I remember I was watching esports for so long, right? Like I remember StarCraft. I remember like Super Smash Brothers Melee, like Apex 2013, 2014. Obviously, like I've been watching leagues for so long now. It's actually like it's criminal how much like I'm like, oh yeah, I remember like GGU Darshan or Zion Spartan. It's like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
It's funny because I have those conversations when I went to finals where some people were like, yeah, I remember season 3, 4, this. I'm like, brother, like 2021 or later, please, man. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it is what it is. But like being older, right? It's always kind of been seen as a stigma if you're a player. Weirdly enough, I felt like it's kind of worked in older people's favor when you're doing what I like to say is esports adjacent stuff, right? So casting, production, if you're on like the actual business side of esports, if you're working for a company, right? Like Team Liquid or organization like Under Thieves, if you're on the finance team or whatever, I feel like it actually works in our favor. Do you think that's the stigma is only there for players where like if you're older, like yourself or myself, you have a lot more, maybe not weight, but just there's some sort of, here's your 22-year-old caster, here's your 30-year-old caster. They treat you a little bit differently, right?
I don't know. I've never thought about it. I mean, like off the top, I don't think, particularly casting, I don't think it really makes much of a difference. So, as for the other parts, like working business side, team ops, whatever the case may be, yeah, I think being older, not by virtue of itself, is an advantage.
Yeah, of
But
course.
chances are, people who get into esports usually don't have it as like the first, at least from the people I've met. So it's very anecdotal. Don't go into this as like their main thing. They've wanted this since childhood. Esports is too new for that for a lot of us, where it was people worked in the business world, in this world, in that world. So it has that job experience where it's very applicable to esports because at the end of the day, esports is almost like, I don't know, like this is too weird of an analogy, so I'm not going to use that. But it's this idea that much like
I would say
regular
let it
sports
rip.
or whatever.
I would say let it rip. Yeah.
No, it's like this whole thing about how like people try to say that anime is a genre, but it's actually a medium which has a bunch of subgenre. It's too hard. It's too hard. But the point is, I think that it seems that way because a lot of people who are like closer to our age have had like work experience that is very relatable, which is why people tell you, and I agree with this, don't go to esports certified school programs for things like business, finance, whatever, because they will take you if you just do regular business finance, and it's a much more flexible career. It's a much more flexible education.
Yeah, transferable skills, going into it. There's no de facto esports career right now. It is,
No.
I worked in big tech company. I worked on the business side. I can help you guys out because here's my skills. And I'm actually passionate about this industry. So I'm going to give it my all, even if you do pay me tens of thousands of dollars of less money.
Yeah, no, these people take pay cuts to work here because if they just worked at big tech, like Silicon Valley, wherever the case may be, they'd be making dollars, bro.
Yeah.
But they're okay with making less working esports, and that's kind of what esports is. And honestly, the reason it's gotten this far is because of passion like that.
100%. Take it back to casting a little bit. I want to talk about NACL 2023, and I think one of the big things that and kind of got overshadowed a little bit was that when Rafa got moved up from amateur or challengers to LCS, you yourself actually were brought on to the first inaugural season of NACL 2023, right? As a full-time color caster. That's a big deal, man. Like when I saw your post, like Cubby, everybody, right? Like I think a little bit it got overshadowed, not for no reason, no hate to Rafa. That's just the way it is, right? Like it's a bigger thing. But talk to me about like that vindication, because before that, you did, I believe it was LCS Proving Grounds 2022, and that was in August. So there was about a 5-month period where you were like, what the fuck do I do? What the fuck is happening? Right? Like what?
Yeah.
Probably it's not 5 months. You probably knew a little bit before that, but like,
no,
you got announced. You got announced in January.
Late.
Yeah. So like what? Talk me through that. Cause that's a big thing, man. Cause you got the position over a lot of other colors that some people could make the argument for. I was super stoked when I got like when you were on there, you were announced permanently. I've been watching you. I've been, seeing your stuff for a while. So talk to me about that, because that was a big deal for you, right? It had to be.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like you said, like no shame to Mark. I mean, Mark's example, Rafa is like, that path to pro for broadcasters, like it really works. Dude was casting amateur, doing the
Mm-hmm.
the
He was
five
grinding.
dollars, the exposure cast, and like he made it to the top. So like it feels really good for every one of us who are watching and trying to get on that same path. But for me, yeah, it was pretty crazy. And like to your that initial, I guess, question, I knew in January that I was gonna be on. Maybe yeah,
Hints in,
it was January.
hints in
Yeah, like
December,
the
but confirmation in January.
yeah, I think I did get hints in December, but like I really wasn't sure until I got the DM, I got the email, we set up the call, and they say, "Hey, we want to bring you on full time." Well, and I'm like, it was great because those 5 months were excruciating. Like, don't get me wrong, um, like I have friends who talk to people who know stuff, right? So I hear like the rumblings, the rumors and stuff. And I was actually I didn't know whether or not they were going to add someone this year until towards the end of summer last year. Because I mean they had a lot of play-by-plays, a lot of hosts, but only Cubby and Josh. And I talked to them sometimes about how, like, especially during the super weeks, it was a lot of like broadcasting. Like, they
It's
were
a lot
always
of
worried about the
hours, man,
voices. It's a
to
lot of
split between
hours.
two people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, the money was great and everything like that. But with the fact that Challengers League became a thing, they added more games, like significantly more games. Like that was when I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna add somebody else because like Cubby and Josh will die, and
Yeah, no.
nobody
Their throat,
wants that to
their
happen.
voices won't survive. Literally, they won't be able
No,
to physically do it. You cannot cast that
that
much
much.
consecutively. Yeah, people don't understand
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So and back to like the friends who hear rumblings and this and that. I was pretty confident it would be me for since like last spring, to be honest, because I had heard from someone else that there was already the rumor that a third color was going to be added this year, and I heard last spring that I was like first on the list, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. So just keep working hard, and that was kind of like my goal. Worked. I got to do spring proving grounds. I got to do summer proving grounds, which was so
Yeah.
great, and it was a good time. And it was funny because even though Kelsey's the producer, she's no longer there. She works at EG now.
EG, yeah.
Towards the after my last day on Proving Grounds, we got into a call real quick. She's like, "All right, we're done. Like, good job, thank you. I'll send you the feedback. Thanks so much for joining us again. Like, it was a great time. I hope you had fun. And yeah, we'll probably be in touch for 2023." I'm like, "Oh shit,
That
okay."
that's like the interview. It's like, all right, wait, we'll call you back later this week. Like, it's almost like the soft
It's the
launch
soft. You
confirmation.
got it. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was still like, because even though I had a lot of reasons to be confident, I was really confident in like what I was bringing to
Mhm.
broadcasting. I mean, hearing stuff like that is also very confidence inducing. That makes sense. But 5 months is also a long time to not hear anything. So it was definitely a lot of like, oh God, is it gonna be me? Is it
Did
gonna
I
be anybody? What if
did
they
I
just
fuck up on
'cause
Twitter?
did I do?
Did I-
Yeah, dude. You just start looking. You're almost paranoid. Just start looking like, was it
Mhm.
this? Was it that? Should I have done something better? And part of that anxiety came from the fact that I mean, last year I was getting a lot more work, and during COVID, I actually took a shot, and I didn't go back to my retail job when I was laid off, and
Oh,
then
yeah, that sucks.
when
I'm
they
sorry to
came
hear that, man.
back, it's okay. I hated that job. And when they asked me to come back, I was like, you know what? No. And I took a shot. So I just broadcasted full time. I wasn't making a lot, but because I live with my family still, it was like doable.
It's
But
manageable. Yeah.
it was manageable. But the question was always, okay, if I don't start really making it at a certain point, like I have to think about doing something else. Maybe not quitting, but really just reducing my focus on broadcasting and maybe esports as a whole, right? So that was my thought, and I was thinking about that a lot last off season. It's like if I don't get Challengers League, I'm gonna have to take that step. And that was part of what was like really stressing me out. 'Cause like I didn't want to. Like I love casting League, the community, like everything about it. I didn't want to leave. I didn't even want to take a step back. So I was really like hoping and praying that I would get it. And I mean, here we are. We
Yeah,
got it.
yeah,
And
I
I was
know,
so
right?
excited. I of course I want I told like my best friend immediately. She does not like know shit about esports. Like
Like
barely anything.
my partner knows nothing.
You
She like
know?
when she just knows I scream, I talk
Yeah.
about games, and that's it. Like
Yep.
just now, she was like, "Oh, you're doing the interview." I was like, "Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah."
that's the same thing. Like I told her, I told my other best friend, and now that was it. Like, and my family because they don't understand either. But like they knew this was something that I wanted, that I was aiming for, and I got it, and I was like freaking out. I'm like, yes, I did it. Let's go. It was great.
Is it caveat a little bit? Is it kind of tough having that conversation with your family? Right?
No,
I don't know. I don't know if they're. Oh,
nope,
okay. Wow.
no,
Just nah. They understand
wow.
completely.
It's so funny that you asked that because I
You think you're in the
already knew
minority?
for a long time. Sorry?
I said, do you think you're in the minority of people that like
Oh, absolutely. I'm certain of
can
that
have
because
can have
yeah,
that conversation?
yes. Oh God, I'm certain. Because it's funny. I think I only realized this. God, not even in the past year, like recently, where I've always been really appreciative of my parents because having friends, interacting with other people, especially children of immigrants. You probably know what I'm talking about. Where
Y-
parental relationship is like really tough, and I've always been thankful for my parents because they're not perfect by any stretch,
No
but
one's is,
I knew
man.
they were. Yeah, but they, on top of doing their best, they were actually really good about a lot of stuff like that. Even though there were other issues, but like I think in the grand scheme of things, like I'm really appreciative because something I learned. This is gonna sound so weird. I learned this and noticed this playing God of War Ragnarok because I don't know if you played it. I'm gonna
It's a
try and
good
like do
ass
this without
game. No,
spoiling.
it's a good
No, it's
fucking
a
game.
fantastic. That's one of my
Yeah.
favorite games of all time. Like
Game
it
of
was
the
so
year,
good.
100%.
Yeah,
Hands
I know.
down.
Robbed. Listen,
Yeah.
Elden Ring, great game. I'm sure, but that was some bullshit. But whatever, man. The
People don't
point
care about
is,
story. People don't care about
yeah.
story. That's why
So
Elden Ring won.
yeah, not real. So this is actually easier than I can explain it to you at least.
Yeah.
So the thing, the theme that I noticed about like Kratos and trying to be a better father to Atreus was that he at first, and what he didn't really understand towards the end is that he was trying to define Atreus as an extension of himself. And that's why he even tells him, "You are not Loki, you are Atreus, my son, nothing more." And it's like stifling his, growth into who he actually is because children shouldn't be defined by their parents. And he realized that towards the end, and like he really accepted him for who he was when he told him, "I was wrong. When I told you to close your heart, you are a compassionate and caring young man, and I respect that and love that about you." And you know what I mean? And he accepted that his son is who he is, and it's a strength, and he's different from him. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I mean, spoilers. That's why he lets it. I'm just spoilers once again.
This is big
Whole
spoilers.
game.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why he lets him on his own journey at the end, right?
Yep.
He's like
Yep.
recognizes him as his own person, and that
Yes.
regardless of what happens, he will always be my son, and he will always come back to me if he
Yeah.
needs me, and I have to make sure that I'm there for him.
Yes. And I realized because that's when I started noticing in other shows and movies, whatever, where parental issues are like a big thing, a big theme. It's
That's
that
the theme
same
right now.
thing. That's yeah, and it's the pattern that I never noticed before. And I didn't realize that people even lived like this. And that's where I got like the depth of my thanks to my parents just deepened when I realized that because my parents were never like that. Where my parents said the whole like, we came to Canada, we sacrificed a
Get a
lot
better
so you could have
life.
get a better life. But it's not like in that projection that some parents have where like, have the life like I couldn't have or the life that I wanted. It's literally like my mom has said this to me many times where it's like, hey, look, we did a lot, but at the end of the day, we did it so you could do what you want to do. That you could choose something that'll make you happy, that will sustain you, whatever. Like it's your choice. My parents were super encouraging. My dad's only thing was like finish university and do
Yeah.
whatever you want. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, because I was actually like super depressed in my third year of uni. I didn't want to work in this field. I was debating dropping out. My dad's like, look, finish the degree. You get it. There's some value in having a degree itself. And once you do that, do whatever you want. It doesn't matter. And
What was that degree, if you don't mind me asking?
criminal justice.
Oh wow. Oh, so
Yeah.
literally beat down
Ah,
Boulevard.
that's
Just
not
kidding.
why I thought of the name,
Nah,
but yeah,
just
that's.
no, I'm just
But
kidding.
also, I may or may not play Vi. That's not important.
Nah. So was that side? Was that a caveat? Like, were you like really into like? Was it like a cop angle or was it like a private
I mean,
detective angle?
everything.
What was that?
It was. I wanted to be an investigator. For pretty much every job like that, you have to start off as a beat cop, and that was fine.
Yeah.
That was the goal. But I learned more about the life and what you actually have to deal with and live with, and I'm like, wow, fuck that.
Sucks. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
terrible.
no.
It's literally. I'm not built like that. Like one of my best friends is a cop, in our region, and it's like he can handle it. But some of the stuff he tells me, bro, I'm like,
Yeah, no.
I made the
My dad
correct
was a
decision.
cop when I was young.
Huh?
My dad was a
Oh,
cop.
you
My
know.
dad was, yeah, like it's hours and like he left pretty quickly because of just like how it's hard to be a cop, have
It
two
is.
kids, a wife. It's a
It
whole
messes up family life.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a pretty underrepresented thing about like that kind of line of work. Luckily, my dad
Yeah.
got out like very, very early. Not in like
Good.
he got out, it's a gang, but like
Yeah,
he left that
I mean, it feels
profession.
like it sometimes.
Yeah, if you're in America, yeah.
Yeah.
But he got out, he left, and he was
Okay.
like a much better, So I know what you mean. Like you went into something, and then you like third year in, you're like, holy fuck, like I don't want to do this.
This is terrible. This is awful. Yeah. And that's why I really appreciate my parents even more so lately because I realized that they had never tried to define me by them. Not really. Certain things that bother them, like piercings, tattoos. I have a tattoo. They don't actually know. I'm gonna get another one that I can't hide, so they'll know soon. But
How long have you been hiding that first tattoo?
I got it last July.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah,
Is it
I'm
like
good.
it's not like your
It's,
back?
it's in the shoulder. It's in the shoulder.
So you just wear shirts. That's fair.
Yeah, I just wear shirts, which kind of sucks because no, I'm glad I'm about to show them because I love wearing tank tops and sometimes not wearing like a shirt when it's hot in the summertime. But I didn't do that last summer because I was hiding it and it was also
Obviously.
healing. And
Yeah.
I don't want to do that anymore. So yeah.
They weren't like suspicious, like when you were taking the saran wrap and like putting it around.
They never noticed. It's so crazy.
Dude, my mom's a hawk when it comes to like any kitchen thing. Like when I used to live at home, like she's like, "What are you doing with that plastic wrap?" I'm like, what the? I just took like one bag, man. Like,
yeah, literally. I don't know. My parents they don't notice these things, so I mean, that's a win is a win.
yeah, it lucked out.
Yeah.
We pivoted a lot, but
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit. It's fine. But I get what you're saying, right? That moment was really big for you because you had kind of the full backing and support of like everybody around you. And so I talked about it a little bit. Was there a little bit of like vindication? Like, yeah, I'm this is why I do all of this. Like finally, like, because it's a big, like, obviously you did all the other stuff and like you got brought on. You did CLOL, right, in 2022. Like you've been doing it, but like being brought on as a full-time color caster with the ranks of people like Cubby, like Joshi, right? Like just working with those kind of guys. It's a level up, man. Like it's a step up. It's some real stuff. Like talk about that. Just like you said, a little bit more. Obviously, you were going on about telling all your friends the 5-month period, but what did that really mean for you on more of like a personal level for your growth?
It felt like a real step forward. Like I really want to. Like of course, I don't want to just stop here. I want to be an LCS. I want to cast the Messiah. I want to cast Worlds and everything like that. But this is still that step forward, and I'm trying to be like present in my life and appreciative of the journey, not just the destination, right? Because I've had a lot of good moments, even when I was casting in what I like to call the lows, where I was getting exposure bucks or a small amount of money or whatever the case may be. So I also, even though I'm still aiming a lot higher, this felt really good because I think this was the first time since I started that I always believed I could do it, especially these last couple of years. but this was getting NACL was the first time I felt that I could do it. If that makes any sense.
I think every caster kind of has to be a little cocky. Just like
yeah, that's just how.
You have to have confidence in yourself when you're, especially, okay, no shade to play-by-plays, but like if you're a color, you're throwing your ideas out there. Like you are getting,
real.
Like you have to, if you don't speak with confidence and it's about like maybe something that's a bit more contentious of a point, you'll immediately just get thrown to the wall. Like they'll be like, oh, this guy's
rolled.
Yeah, you'll get like exactly. You just get smoked and rolled, and you'll just be like, "Well, this guy." But if you speak with like a little bit of confidence,
how I know you watched Overwatch. Smoked and rolled. That's an old one.
Yeah. I know what you mean, right? Like you have to have a little confidence. So I'm like, it's obviously like you said, very vindicating. It's that like a real step forward. I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is like, yeah, when you jump from the exposure to the 5, it's a small step, or when you jump from like the 5 to like I'm doing collegiate now. Right, which is like for me where I'm kind of at, where I'm doing collegiate stuff, and it felt like a real step. This isn't. I don't think this is a leak or anything. I think he actually talked about it, where Cubby was offered like LCK, and you said you want to do LCS. Is there international beatdown? Like if somebody said, "Hey, next year I want you on for LPL," would you bank it over to China? Or would you do is it LCS or nothing, or is it high level league or nothing for you?
I don't know. Somewhere in the middle, I think, because more than anything else, I want to be in the LCS. But LPL is hard because the English broadcast, you don't live there, right?
Yeah.
For example, Mazel still lives in California.
Yeah, he does it from his apartment. Yeah.
Yeah, which he does a crazy sleep schedule, and dude is incredible. For one, I mean, being able to do that, and also his quality of work is incredible, despite that. But I don't think I could actually handle that. Like worst case, if I did that, I would have to move to like Europe or something. So it's not as grief of a time zone difference. But you ask me what I really want, it would be LCS, and I would go to LEC if I also got the offer. But those are like the two. It's hard to know because if I actually got like a full-time LCK offer, it's really like
it's a different
I
thing,
respect
man.
Cubby's confidence because he turned it down, believing that he can still do LCS. Because tier 1 offers don't come lightly, right? Of course, we all know Cubby is like good enough for it and deserves that opportunity. But he's also confident enough to say, wait for the opportunity that he wants and work for that.
Yeah, I there's definitely the pros and cons, because it's also like if you're denying that, you're low-key denying Riot, right? You're saying like, hey, no. And so that's the optics of that. And most people wouldn't understand that from the outside looking in. But like it's like this, right? If you're working at a company, if you get offered like a promotion and you say no, they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
You're saying no to me? Like that's but no, this is not about Cubby. I'm not interviewing Cubby. I'm interviewing you.
Fair.
Beatdown. I just wanted to kind of get your perspective on like where you'd be comfortable casting and like those kind of decisions, because I don't know how many people really think about that. A lot of people will put that goal on top of the mountain, but they don't realize that, hey, there's actually another mountain over there that I could probably climb, possibly. So about the casting, stuff like that, we're gonna get into something a little bit more spicy. We're gonna talk about NACL 2023. I know you're far removed. You talked about it. Pretty extensively. There's a couple things I want to like talk about and address and get your kind of more unfiltered, longer form opinion on. I think one of the things that we see constantly, and as long as I've been watching League of Legends, this has always been an issue ever since there was a promotion tournament, relegation, challengers, when it was all this other stuff. First things first, I want to talk about the TSM roster. I want to talk about
NACL.
the TSM roster. And kind of the point that always gets brought up, split after split, year after year, is why are there 3 veterans on a roster, right? Why are there these older people? Why are these people recycled? Some would say. A lot of people would go a lot harsher. A lot.
True.
You know I'm being nice because of the things we've seen on Twitter and Reddit. Some of those are valid. I would argue, but a lot of it isn't. Like roster building wise, you kind of want to have a veteran or two to help your rookies, right? Like learn the game and stuff. But this was like a roster of like Sven Skaren, Honster, Wild Turtle, you know, these kind of guys. What is your opinion on these kinds of teams? Right now, and hindsight's good for us because now we know that TSM potentially wants to exit. So like maybe that roster was just like, hey, we want them in there. We're not going to promote talent. We're not going to really develop it. But there are other rosters that do the same thing. What is your opinion on like sort of these? I've always said they're kind of like the gatekeeping rosters. Like if you're not better than them, maybe you don't deserve to be in the LCS. If you're worse than them, you stay in NACL. But that's not even remotely true anymore, right? Because there are a lot of teams that place lower that end up getting spots, you know, higher in LCS sometimes, right? What is your opinion on these organizations taking on 3 out of the 5 of their people, or 2 out of the 5 of their people, or 4, sometimes even 4 of the individuals are like very, you know, they're tenured in the LCS and you're throwing them in academy? Do you think it's more of like a safety net thing for them? Do you think they don't care about developing in league? Like what is your actual like more unfiltered opinion on this?
I think they don't care about developing in league, but not for the reasons you mentioned. Because one thing that we tried to talk about a lot on the podcast is that just because you're an old player, it doesn't actually mean that you can't compete, that you shouldn't be here, that you're automatically bad and your career is dead. And I think that's especially true of, so I'll talk about it, I guess, from top to bottom. Hanser and Sven Skaren have both said that they want to go back to LCS. That's why they're here, and this is the only really way to do it. Like you got to play in Challengers League. You have to play. You have to get noticed. That's kind of the path, and it's their only option. So they decide to do that, and we know that this is what they want to do. It's true of Wild Turtle as well. Although watching Wild Turtle play, the first couple of weeks, I honestly wasn't sure. But they swapped him out, and he was doing decent in LCS. So I don't really know how all that works, but he's doing better. So good for him. It's just I find it why I think TSM doesn't care about developing is just things I've heard behind the scenes about how they run teams at any level, but particularly Challengers League, where they don't actually have a coaching staff, for example.
Yeah,
Where
that was a big point.
Yeah, they have a coach, like, you know, they have to put someone's name down, but it's just their manager who they don't do anything, literally. And that's why it's fine for Sven Skaren, Hanser, Wild Turtle, these people who are tenured in the LCS, who are tenured in competitive League of Legends. But then you look at their mid laner, Doxa, who's his first shot at this level, where, I mean, it's tough. Joining a team like that honestly kind of sucks for him because he recognizes that, you know, it is what it is. He's just gonna do his best, and I respect that attitude. It's just hard because he's learning mid lane from Hanser, and like, I mean, okay, I'm sure there's something you can learn because he's a very high level solo laner. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think you're getting a lot of value out of that, especially as a newer mid laner who's been around but never gotten the chance to really play at this level, where you would think that a team could have some kind of resources to help develop young talent like that, but TSM just doesn't.
Well, you know, I wanted this to be less of like a TSM kind of thing, but more along the lines of like rosters.
Okay.
No. I'm fine the way you took it, the direction you took it, but it was more along the lines of kind of like multiple rosters. Like if you look at C9 Challengers, right? They had Fake God, they had Lost, Zazel, right? These are guys. Oh my God,
yeah,
right. Like
that's why I think it's fine.
And they're a roster that succeeded because of a Diplex / Jimenez, right? Yeah. Tomio in the jungle. So there's always that back and forth, but would you say that maybe might be an exception to the rule in that sense? They're not the norm, right? Do you, because I understand roster building, I would say, you know, I understand the premise, right? Surround 3 rookies with 2 veterans or something like that. Develop the rookies, get a veteran presence there so that they know what to do during the mid game, the late game, because rosters of 5 rookies rarely completely work out, right? Like,
no,
it's not
almost never.
I don't think I think it's almost unheard of. Like you just drop 5 rookies and oh man, they're gonna like stomp, right? They're gonna do amazing. Yeah. Like you need some of that leadership there. What about the argument of, you know, these guys are taking up spots for other people? Have you ever kind of had that notion, or have you been more along the lines of they worked for it, they deserved it, scrims. Like I can't tell what happens in scrims. Clearly, somebody within that team, or the whoever the coach is, the org, they value that person. Have you ever been? What has your opinion of that in general?
No. If you're good enough, you deserve to play in the league. That's it. I don't care about age. I'm honestly really over the age stigma overall. Whether it's just an older player or a player who has had a lot of who's just been around the competitive block, so to speak, for a long time. Like Fake God didn't look so great in the LCS. Lost struggled when he played on TSM, but I mean, Fake God looked incredible for the majority of the regular split in Challengers League. That's not true. The back half is of the regular season. The first half, whatever, but he really started turning it up towards the end, and he was looking really good.
He ended up in playoffs, right?
Zeyzal was he had some ups and downs in playoffs, but in his last couple of matches, he looked really good. So overall, I think this is a positive split for him, and we should be happy about that. Lost and Zeyzal were basically our best bot lane in my opinion, they were the best bot lane we had in the whole league. They were unbelievable. Like the stuff that they would do. Zeyzal's credited Lost for being one of the most aggressive players he's ever played with. Zeyzal's the best support in the league. We had an early sort of power ranking thing we did. This is a small pit that Cubby, Josh, and I did, and we all had Zeyzal in our top 5 players. He's unreal as a support, and just how smart he is about the game. And that's why there's just so much. You look at Cincinnati Fear, Trevor, their support. He got passed up on a lot of offers when it was still Academy because he's above the age of 21, which is apparently a criminal sin in League of Legends. But he actually had a good year. He had a great playoffs, and they made top 6? And in playoffs, Trevor was a big part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they ended up overall finishing top 4 after the.
Was it not? Oh yeah, because it was top 4 because they played FlyQuest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, that means FlyQuest. Whoa, that just reminded me of something else. But thank you.
Yeah, yeah. FlyQuest Challengers, a team that also a lot of people are high on, during the NACL split. The age thing, I get it, man. It's so annoying because you see if you understand the FGC, Daigo Umehara is one of the
isn't he in his 40s or some shit?
And he's still top 80 and winning Japanese major. He's doing good, man. It's and there's other players too. If you watch Melee, right? If you understand the Smash Bros scene, Mango's 30 plus, right?
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, right? It's just the age thing is really weird. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
Perfect segue into the Cincinnati Fear. I like how you brought up Trevor. Gonna put cap on a little bit. Talk to me about the Fear roster. This will be a bit of a 2-part question, and kind of why everybody, unanimously everybody kind of rated them a little bit low, right? I mean, on paper, you look at the roster, right? On paper, you have Basil, Perry, Shochi, Minui, Trevor, right? Not the most household names, right? Unless you're Cubby, who knows everybody from down to when they competed in XLNC mid league or whatever, right?
I forgot Cubby did that. Yeah, that's true.
I call back, just a big throwback. Yeah. But obviously, you wouldn't know these people, right? Then they didn't have a lot of these guys didn't have a crazy amount of success individually on different rosters. But why was it it almost felt like everybody had the Cincinnati Fear very low, and it was a colossal overlook. What was the reasoning behind that?
There was a lot of reasons. I think the biggest thing holding back that roster was holding back people's opinions of that roster were people's opinions of Shochi and Minui specifically. Shochi is a player who I think had a pretty good year last year, even though Proving Grounds wasn't so great for Taco Gaming last summer.
Yeah.
Where he actually showed that he did deserve a chance in Academy. He almost got it for IMT when they were supposedly waiting for Pretty's visa to clear, but it cleared much faster than anticipated, so Shochi actually never got the opportunity. So he just came back and played on Taco Gaming. They won Proving Grounds Qualifier 2 in summer, which was really cool. That was a great series. But overall, people think he wouldn't have had what it took whatever to hang in Challengers League. They think he wasn't at that level. And Minui was another one where honestly, before this year, and Manui's even admitted that he understands why people rate him low, he hasn't been that good these last couple of years. Like he's been around for a little bit, and we never really saw much from him. So immediately off the back, we expected that to be one of our weakest bot lanes in the league, and I agreed with that. Even though I was a fan of Trevor and I thought he was a good player, just because I didn't have a good rating of Manui. Shochi, I was a little more high on. I think he could do it, but it's tough. I didn't know what kind of resources Fear was working with, coaching staff, stuff like that. It's hard when it's like not a challengers team because you look at staffs like TL, Cloud9, good system going on, and things like that. I don't know what some of these provisional teams have. Luckily for Fear, I mean, one, Shochi and Manui exceeded expectations a bunch. Perry really developed as well this year as a jungler, talking about how last year he was kind of a passenger when he subbed for Dig Academy and Proving Grounds, got second place this time around. He wanted to be that carry player, wanted to take charge more, and man, he did that. Even in going into playoffs, Fear looked honestly really good, and they deserve that top 4 spot. And I mean, you look at the top side of the map, Perry, we already thought would be pretty good, but he still managed to exceed expectations. Faisal needs to be on a challenger team like yesterday. The fact that I'm just gonna say it. The fact that Immortals imports AD and doesn't give like a chance to Faisal or even Zamudo, who didn't end up on any team this year, which is insane, is
Criminal.
ridiculous.
Criminal that Zabuto is not on a team. Criminal.
Actually disgusting. But that's why people kind of viewed that team low. People thought Faisal and Perry would be good, but the rest of the map, whatever.
And what do you attribute and that kind of success to? Like they clearly like you said, they weren't that good. Like the system is in place, but going from that to fourth, that's like a lot of development, a lot of growth. You were obviously casting them week in, week out. Did you see that marked improvement? Like what they were doing? Like, oh, they play around Baron setups better. Oh, they understand bot lane matchups really well. The mid jungle works really well together, right? I mean, I think like you said, Perry's a beast, man. Like I watch his streams when he's like jungling to learn how to be a better jungler, dude. Like that's like, what would you kind of, what would you attribute that kind of like, because they, for all intents and purposes, in reality, everybody had them as like a bottom 4 roster, right? Like, but they highly exceeded expectations.
Yeah. A lot of that is, I mean, okay, let me think.
Sorry.
So no, you're good. So what I think a big thing was that we were giving them a lot of credit for is they were drafting really smart, making use of really strong champions, Shochi being a very flexible player, playing a lot of unique picks in the mid lane. I mean, he plays the standard stuff. He's good at the mages, but he'll play the melees, the assassins. He'll play Zed. He'll play Akali. He'll play Silas. Tristana, which is a weird one, but they did a really good job of using Shochi's unique champ pool to get a lot of creative counter matchups that would get them a lot of value in the early game. They did that for Trevor as well, where he would play some interesting stuff. And they were the only team in the league that played Seraphine, which, despite constant nerfs, I still, and a lot of us believe, is like a disgustingly broken champion. Like so powerful, just out overlooked in the pro scene at pretty much at every level, every region. It's ridiculous. But part of it is a lot of smart drafting. They actually developed really well as a team, though. Like their team fight setups were good. Their coordination was good. They actually rotated. They had a pretty good understanding towards the end of the split of like timers and tempo to understand like when to recall, when to set up for objectives. According to Cubby, teams had them right up there with Cloud9 challengers before playoffs started when it comes to like objective setups and like understanding timers and stuff, which I thought was kind of crazy, but like it made sense with how they looked towards the end. That's just to show you how like they really not only earned our respect, they earned the respect of other challengers teams.
Yeah.
And also another thing to add too is that they actually had a really good system in place. That they attribute a lot of the success to their head coach Cow. They had they had a handful of coaches where they attribute a lot of their draft success, a lot of their level 1 success, where they would do a lot of really smart level 1 strategies. Where you just have coaches, some of their coaches like really good, where they get these level 1s where they just scouted a top laner. They know where he likes to stand. It's like, all right, boys, get them. And it's so good. And then they'll be like, yeah, like our coach planned that one out. And it's happened multiple times. So on top of the players, like, of course, willingness to grow and improve and stuff like that, they had a really good system behind them too.
Yeah, I think
At least that's what it looks like.
the ascension of Fear has been was really cool to watch. You brought it. You talked about weird champion picks. Perfectly brings me on to my next point. I want to talk about another roster that made a huge splash right across the scene. I think maybe you know what I'm talking about. This Wildcard roster, right? I've got some stuff about him. From a holistic point of view, right? As the team. Do you think the strategy that they implemented with like having these really off-ball, goofball, weird picks, like eventually they hit the wall, right? And so like there's the notion that if you're a team like that, you just keep specializing, you just keep doing what you're doing, or eventually you're gonna have to play meta stuff, right? Eventually you're gonna have to kind of conform a little bit, right? Because these guys, they were playing Garen, obviously, right? Annie Mid was really big for Soligo. I would say Zach was like a double flex. Shit, Udyr was a double flex. Like Moose Hater Keel were just running that top side in terms of just like the mind games and stuff. But eventually, like you said, they got stopped. I think they ended up 6th, was it overall? 8th.
No,
sorry,
I
apologies.
think
8th. Exciting team to watch. Very, very fun. But like, it has its limitations. Why do you think that some teams weren't banning these kind of champions early on? Like they just weren't like was it ego? Was it ego?
I think partially, because don't get me wrong, I don't think Garen is like this Thanos champion. In some drafts, like he does actually look good. I hate that champion so much though. I wish he wasn't viable in any capacity, but that's neither here nor there. I think part of it is that there were no answers, and part of it was there is no respect. Because like Camille is good into Garen. Camille was honestly, it was picked sometimes. I felt it as a viable champion so far across the patches here in spring, but we didn't really see any of that. We saw teams finally start to kind of get it and ban things away from them, like the Garen, the Blitzcrank, the Zac, stuff like that. But it took a while where teams, they thought they had the sauce. They're like, no, we can beat this, and they couldn't.
They were also a big Ash Zyra bot lane. Like they were playing those kind of champions. Like not stuff like even there. It's not even just like a top lane thing. Like Wildcard as a whole, we're like, no, we're just gonna like throw darts and be like, you deal with it. Like we're gonna pick whatever. Talking more about the sustainability of that play style, though, right? Like, do you think at a certain level you just kind of have to start conforming? Do you think or do you think they just NA as a whole has kind of lost the sauce when it comes to like being unique and being like having those kind of picks? Because I think as we get higher into the leagues and even some of the higher placed teams, we start losing that uniqueness of some of these, right? Like we're not seeing Garen like obviously other than Moose Hater, but we're not seeing like Zac top. We're not seeing Udyr top, right? Poppy, Jarvan, this kind of stuff. Even traditional top lane champions like Kled, we're not even seeing them. Like, do you think everybody just kind of has to conform at one point? Or do you think there is viability in sitting down and saying, hey, Wildcard let them cook. They were doing something, right?
They were cooking. I would say
what do you think teams can do that?
I think teams can do that, but it depends on what we're talking about. Because when you talk about champs like Kled and stuff like that, Zyra, what else? There are champions that you kind of need to. Riven is another one where it's like, look, you gotta grind the champ. You gotta know the limits, otherwise it's not worth playing them. And I think that's part of why we see not a lot of people lean towards these things, and that's fine. That's the cool thing about League and Draft is that there's a lot of different options. There's a lot of different responses and answers, and that's part of what made Wildcard good as well, because they also, much like Fear, had a bit of a different way of approaching drafts, where they would draft for team fight. In a meta where blue side had a noticeably higher win rate, they would always pick red. They would always use those counter picks to, not even counter picks necessarily, they would last pick, what would they last pick?
They would be last picking jungle sometimes, like for Keel.
Yeah, like it was like for Keel or maybe bot lane to get like a decent matchup and maybe really utilize some of the flex potential that they had. But at the end of the day, they didn't draft for lane. It was always for team fights, and that was all that was ever really important to them, and teams couldn't deal with it early on. And I think that's what changed really for them because later on, one, people understood how to draft against them. They knew what power picks to take away. They knew what responses to go through with, and teams got better to the point where okay, well now they'll also out team fight you. So it felt like Wildcard were doing well the entire time and just fell behind in playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to use the word like regress to the mean kind of thing because I don't
Nah,
think that's
nah,
I don't think that's
I won't say
fair. I don't think that's
regress.
fair. Yeah, I don't
Everyone
think that's fair
caught
to
up.
wild card. Yeah, everybody just got everybody. You know, everybody was kind of doing their own thing in
Yeah.
regards to on wild cards aspect, but also just teams figuring it out.
Yeah.
About NACL, I kind of want to talk about something else. Obviously, it's adjacent, but kind of your first year casting and kind of how it was in regards to like community reception, perception, right? Like, were there ever moments in your casting, or were there ever moments when you had an opinion on something where maybe you were like, I don't think I should throw this out there because I'm just gonna get like grilled, or were you more along the lines of like, no, I'm like you said, you're a very confident person. I'm gonna have this opinion, and I challenge people to talk to me about it.
If I don't know if I think something, I'll say it. I don't mind as long as I have like a reason behind it and it's not like on a whim or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
fine
You're
talking
not just
about
trying
it.
to like bait, right? You're trying to like
No.
legitimately have a conversation.
Yeah. Always.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's something like a lot of casters kind of get in their own head a little bit. It's like,
Definitely.
oh, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna say that. You kind of have to eventually let go at certain points. And
Yeah.
one more question. We're getting towards that kind of 1 hour mark. I do
Sure.
want to talk about just the absolute ramp up in content for NACL 2023 that you had a hand in. You guys, in my opinion, did a phenomenal fucking job on just amplifying the content. Obviously, your remote casting in, is it harder to kind of be in those kind of content conversations and stuff like that? Because obviously, like, Cubby, Kangas, Joshi,
They all live there.
Yeah,
except
they all live
for
there.
me and Sierra.
Yeah, exactly. So like, how is navigating those difficulties when you're remote? Like, I'm not gonna say like, do you feel left out, but is it just harder for you to kind of participate in these content meetings, or did they actually do a very good job of like, hey, we're gonna include you on like the Rizzler, right? I think everybody. Yeah, like how is it like being a remote caster and trying to do content with essentially everybody else who's in-house, can film and all that stuff, other than like you said, you and Sierra. How is that? What is that experience like? Did they make it pretty easy, or were you like, damn, I wish I was there?
No, I mean, I wish I was there, of course, because I mean, I would like to move to LA at some point because I'm gonna need to if I want to do LCS eventually and things like that. But also the reason, part of the reason I'd like to live there is just because I like those guys on the NACL. I'd like to just hang out with them more than anything else. As for and filming content in person would definitely be ideal because there will give more options. But as opposed to like feeling left out, no, not at all. From start to finish in every aspect, everybody was like super welcoming, accommodating, understanding. And I think it's why a big part of why I thought I did pretty good in the first split because, I had help. Everybody was really cool about I meet with Josh and Cubby almost on a weekly basis. We talk about the game, we review and stuff like that. I found that super helpful as well. You getting feedback, everything like that. No, it was good. I never felt left out.
Never felt. Yeah, I mean, I think that's always kind of been one of the like anybody that's remote, whether you're working casting or anything like that, it's hard to kind of get that connection and just collaborate and do work with, because in reality, they're just a screen, right? Like those sometimes like the offshoot conversations can come into an idea, but like I think like you said, you guys a phenomenal fucking job on the content. I really loved what you guys did with NACL. I think it was probably I think it actually was by far the best year for content, like the stuff on Twitter, the videos you guys were doing, the breakdowns, the newscasts, like everything, man. You guys killed it.
Thank you.
I'm gonna assume you're gonna be back for NACL. Yeah. Like I don't know. Like I don't want to but like I'm assuming you're coming back, everything like that. It was amazing to kind of see you grow as a caster, and like I said, I watched you when you were doing like CLOL 2022, all the other stuff. Pretty surreal moment for me to interview you, so I appreciate it, man.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time. Do you have anything you want to shout out? Right, obviously, your socials will be below in the description, everything like that. I'll do my due justice and get your name out there. But do you have anything else you want to shout out? You like, obviously, your parents are very nice people; they supported you, but like, just anybody else?
Damn. Honestly, like, probably. Oh God, I don't know how do I describe this? Like all the people that I've worked with from like start until now, because it's the smallest things from like when I'm new, getting advice, getting VOD reviews, people who practice with me, people who vouched for me, people who believed in me, all of that stuff. Like if any of that is you, thanks, because I wouldn't be here without all of that, and I probably won't make it any further without all of that. So thanks for the help. Keep it up.
Thank you so much, Mr. Beatdown Boulevard, or at BeatDownCast Twitter, everything like that. I appreciate it. It was really cool talking to you about the minutia of casting, NACL 2023 spring, getting in depth in your head, picking your brain. I definitely, if nobody knows now, if nobody knows back then, that I know now. If once they see this, Beatdown 100% deserves to be on NACL 2023 spring. I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man.